Now, the question of Palestinian statehood is taking center stage at the United Nations this week. A wave of Western governments, including Britain, Canada, and Australia, have now recognized Palestine. It's a move sparking sharp pushback from Israel, even as world leaders gather in New York to confront the ongoing war in Gaza and the humanitarian crisis that has claimed tens of thousands of lives. For News Central, Senior International Correspondent Afua Hagan has more.
New York is once again the center of world diplomacy, and this year the focus is squarely on Palestine. As the UN General Assembly opens, a growing wave of Western nations is formally recognizing a Palestinian state, setting off a firestorm with Israel. On Sunday, Britain, Canada, Australia and Portugal all announced recognition of Palestine.
I set out in July the terms upon which we would act in line with our manifesto to recognise Palestinian statehood. That moment has now arrived. So today, to revive the hope of peace and a two-state solution, I state clearly, as Prime Minister of this great country, that the United Kingdom formally recognises the state of Palestine.
And today, French President Emmanuel Macron signalled France will follow suit, saying Palestinians deserve a nation of their own, not just the grip of Hamas. Macron also tied recognition to the release of hostages taken by Hamas in the October 7th attack, which sparked the war in Gaza nearly 2 years ago. That conflict has left more than 65,000 Palestinians dead, according to Gaza's health ministry, numbers the UN calls credible. Israel insists recognition will not bring peace, but instead destabilize the region. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is standing firm, rejecting a two-state solution and promising a new settlement expansion. His far-right ministers are going further, calling for annexation of the West Bank. Inside the UN, tensions are running high. The General Assembly voted overwhelmingly to allow Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to address the summit by video after Washington denied him a visa. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has urged countries not to be intimidated by the risk of retaliation, saying only international pressure can stop further bloodshed. This week, more than 140 leaders, including US President Donald Trump, will take the podium. But all eyes are on Israel's Netanyahu when he speaks on Friday, as the world watches whether symbolic recognition of Palestine translates into real diplomatic change. For now, the UN is bracing for walkouts, protests and tough words, as the world's most powerful leaders gather under one roof, with Gaza at the heart of it all. For News Central, I'm Afua Hagan.
For more on this, I'm joined by our senior international correspondent and anchor, Afua Hagan. Afua, thank you for joining us. Now, can you speak to us on the significance of the wave of these recognitions for the Palestinian cause? Does it change anything on the ground?
Well, although the recognition of a Palestinian state is largely symbolic, it is important because it gives the Palestinian state, or people in Palestine rather, that recognition that other countries see them and acknowledge the fact that they deserve to have their own land. Now, Israel still largely controls Palestine's borders, certainly controls its food, controls daily life in Palestine, in Gaza, and of course continues bombing areas of Gaza, particularly Gaza City at the moment. But the fact that more countries, especially at the UN General Assembly or around the time of this high-level week where these discussions are going on, have decided to recognize the Palestinian statehood is very, very important. It creates new legitimacy for the Palestinian cause, and it also continues to chip away at that narrative that Israel says the world is on our side. It seems that the balance is shifting, and actually more people are recognizing the Palestinian cause and seeing that perhaps their side is also worth hearing, and also that not everybody agrees with Israel's actions in Gaza post-October 7th.
So what exactly does, recognizing the state of Palestine really mean?
You're getting into the nuts and bolts of what this language means. It's essentially a political and a legal statement that a country accepts that Palestine is a sovereign nation. That can lead to a diplomatic mission. It can lead to ambassadors. In some cases, it can lead to bilateral and trade agreements. But it also carries weight with international law, which is extremely important. A recognized state can join treaties. It can bring cases to bodies like the International Court of Justice, for instance. It could demand equal rights under the UN and under the United Nations system. And for Palestinians themselves, it reminds them that they are seen not just as a people under occupation, which is what they are at the moment, but as a legitimate state and a legitimate country, at least on paper.
So, Afua, now Israel has also reacted angrily, saying the recognition, only destabilizes the region. So do you think that this would likely affect its relations with these key allies?
I think it could. Israel is seeing this as somewhat of an insult that so many of their so-called allies have decided to recognize the country that they are occupying. And they also see it as rewarding Hamas, essentially, for what they have done. And they think that saying that Palestine is an independent country, recognizing the statehood, is rewarding Hamas, and that the hostages don't need to be released, and that essentially this makes this war carry on. And we could see Israel retaliate by expanding their settlements on the West Bank. I think that it will affect their relationship with key allies in some way, because they will feel that not everybody is on their side, and they have perpetuated this narrative that everybody is on their side, that everybody is on their team, that everybody supports what they are doing. But the recognition of a state of Palestine shows that there is two sides to this argument, absolutely. And that actually a lot of people are supporting the Palestinian cause, have supported the Palestinian cause. There was hundreds of countries that recognized the state of Palestine before, Canada, the UK and France decided to do this over the weekend.
Now, speaking of, those allies who are actually on their side, who support them, that's Israel, what does the U.S. and President Trump's firm opposition, to the Palestinian statehood mean for the prospects of a two-state solution?
Well, without President Trump and the support of the United States, a two-state solution can't really move forward. That is the influence of the United States and the influence of Trump. It can't really move forward in a formal sense. And so that kind of leaves the peace process, as it were, in limbo. But in saying that, it has been in limbo for quite a few weeks now. It felt like perhaps we were moving towards a time where negotiations were positive, where a ceasefire was close. But that doesn't seem to be the case at the moment. But Washington is becoming increasingly isolated in being a country that in being the capital of a country that isn't supporting Palestinian statehood. And America continually is risking losing its credibility by staying on the side of Israel. A lot of people are now seeing that as being on the wrong side of history. And where you see Gulf states, where you see the EU playing a more prominent role in this conflict and working for the peace and working for negotiations in this conflict.
All right, Afua, now just before we let you go, could this put real pressure on Israel and the U.S., to shift their positions, especially during the UN General Assembly?
The recognition of Palestinian statehood is largely symbolic. So I don't know if it will put too much pressure on Israel. It will remind Israel that not everybody is on their side. It will remind Israel that there are lots of countries around the world that support the Palestinian cause. And it will leave Israel and America increasingly isolated in this week, where Gaza really is at front and center of those discussions. We are going to hear from the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, and of course from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu throughout this week, and of course President Trump as well. So it remains to be seen how they will comment on this throughout this high-level week, and what it could mean for the peace process and perhaps the two-state solution.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Afua, for speaking on this.